Lucasfilm views Star Wars Episode 9 as course correction for recent failures. Now, you can't course correct something that's already been driven right into the wall. How's it going, everybody? This is Phil. So today we're over on movieweb.com, and the author here is Kevin Berwick. And, look, this is pretty much what we've been saying. It's an admission of sorts for everything that we've been saying for months, that, things have gone horribly wrong. And if Lucasfilm does view Star Wars Episode 9 as a course correction, it really is validation that, movies like The Last Jedi, which failed on a lot of levels. Some people liked it. A lot of people didn't like it. And look, Solo bombed at the theater. These things that happened under Lucasfilm and Disney's watch, and under the leadership or lack thereof of Kathleen Kennedy, that we all were saying this everything was amiss here. And they said, no. And now, evidently, supposedly, this is the case. This is an admission of failure to an extent. So let's read through the article here, and we'll discuss a little bit later once it's all said and done. So Lucasfilm is reportedly viewing JJ Abrams' Star Wars Episode 9 as a course correction for the franchise. After the backlash from Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi and a swift release and ultimate failure of Solo at the box office, it looks like Lucasfilm is aiming to make some changes to ensure success. While Solo's been treated a lot better now that it's out on Blu-ray and seen outside the shadow of Johnson's film, the rest of the planned spin-offs, including the Boba Fett movie, have been canceled, as well as the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, which is a huge casualty as far as I'm concerned. The Boba Fett movie would have been a nice little thing to see at some point. The Obi-Wan Kenobi movie had the potential to be a trilogy unto itself. I really, really believe that. And if it is in fact canceled, which I believe is a mistake, and somehow it will see the light of day. But if it does stay canceled, that is kind of just a big failure at the end of the day. When you can get somebody like Ewan McGregor back into the shoes to reprise that role, and there's a lot of potential there, for a good writer to come in, dig in his heels, and craft a great story with the potential to lead into a three-picture arc. I really, really wholeheartedly believe that. So anyway, the box office performance of Solo: A Star Wars Story and the backlash from The Last Jedi has brought Lucasfilm back to the drawing board to look at the future of the Star Wars franchise, which leads up to JJ Abrams' Star Wars Episode 9. And, the future of the franchise comes with the end of this trilogy. The ending marks the beginning. This is not a course correction. This is a wipe the slate clean. And then when it's all said and done, give us something different and forget that this ever happened, this period of time in this franchise. Abrams is in high demand, and other studios are eager. I lost my place. Eager to start working on a mega deal with the director for other projects. With that being said, a new report from Variety briefly touched on the current Lucasfilm situation. The report reads, he's currently working on Star Wars Episode 9, which has been billed as a course correction at Lucasfilm after spin-off films like Solo failed to meet the label's high commercial expectations. Now, if they're going to use something, they're going to say spin-off films using the plural, I don't think that's correct. I think that Rogue One did very well. Now, look, it wasn't, I don't think anyone thought that it was going to do the Force Awakens type money, but it did $1 billion at the box office for a spin-off film that some people, probably the general audience, didn't necessarily know what to think of it. Some people probably went into it thinking it was actually a sequel to The Force Awakens. For a side movie, it did really, really well. For characters that really nobody knew, but a story that we were all aware of, I think the film did well. because again, prequels, you all kind of know how these things are going to end, in a sense. And as far as the characters that were established in that movie, nobody really knew them. But spoiler alert, everyone dies. So anyway, when it was all said and done, fans reacted positively to Rogue One. So Disney had 2 hits right out the block. I mean, that was a hit. It was after The Last Jedi that Solo failed. Because of the backlash from that movie. So, The Last Jedi was the cause, and Solo was the effect. And that's it. You can't lump Rogue One into this. Rogue One exists on its own, and some people really feel good about that movie. And some people are kind of meh about it. But, at the end of the day, it's definitely one of the more well-received films in the Disney era. And some people consider it the only good film that Disney has done in the Disney era of Star Wars. So anyway, Star Wars Episode 9 was always going to be a high-pressure gig, but it has been ramped up considerably over the course of a year. Colin Trevorrow was originally attached to write and direct the final installment in the new trilogy, and he worked on it for 2 years before being fired, and then fired by Lucasfilm. This has been a common theme on the latest Lucasfilm projects, with Ron Howard taking over for Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and then on Solo, and then the third act of Rogue One getting reworked by Tony Gilroy. Yeah, I mean, the last 3 movies have just been a complete mess. Just poor decision making. Letting directors go, bringing in new directors, spending a lot of money on reshoots. I mean, it's just. It's been a lot of. I wonder what the total is between the reshoots on Solo as well as Rogue One. It's just. I mean, you could shoot a whole nother Star Wars movie. Yeah, I mean, they did essentially with Solo. You might be able to get 2 movies out of it when it's all said and done. It really is crazy. It just, I don't understand how do you let movies get so far into production before you pull the plug 85%, 90%, and then reshoot the whole thing. I mean, you don't get the dailies. You don't see that stuff coming in. And it's not like, back in the 30s when the people were on set and they did what they did, and then you'd cut the film, get it back to the studio, and then the executives would lose their mind. With the advent of the internet, every day you get to see what's going on. So there's no reason why Phil Lord and Chris Miller get the Solo script and they start reworking it and then just ad-lib it and shooting a musical, and then Kathleen Kennedy's completely in the dark about it. I mean, she should have pulled the plug on, in the first 15 to 20 minutes. So, and I still want to see this cut. This to me is one of the more fascinating things in the Disney era. What does the Phil Lord and Chris Miller cut of Solo, a Star Wars story, look like? I want to see it. I desperately want to see that. After Rian Johnson's incredibly divisive The Last Jedi, many hardcore fans are looking to JJ Abrams to fix things that they feel Johnson messed up. He Johnsoned. If the new report is to be believed, Lucasfilm is looking for the same thing, which is a whole new level of pressure. Abrams directed 2015's The Force Awakens, which has also been seen as divisive by fans. But you know what? Ultimately, it was a satisfying movie experience for the vast majority of the people who went to go see that. It was a nostalgia trip, and it made just an ass load of money. I mean, just an obscene amount of money. It crossed that $2 billion threshold. It's right up there with Titanic and Avatar as far as the biggest blockbusters ever to be seen. So, I mean, you could say it was divisive. A lot of people there were people who were ahead of the curve for sure in seeing what was going on. But for the most part, it was well received and just made a ton of money. So it's nowhere near as divisive as The Last Jedi. But those who are vocal about their criticisms of Abrams and the Star Wars franchise are eager to see what the director cooks up after all the dust settles. Okay. So, with that being said, JJ Abrams has already declared that the reaction to The Last Jedi will not factor into his Star Wars Episode 9 at all. I don't believe that. You can't continue to conduct yourself like you're in a bubble. That's what got Rian Johnson in trouble. He wrote and directed that movie as if he was in a bubble, and then when the bubble burst, you were left with a fan community that everyone's going after each other's throats. So you got to pay a little bit of attention. Keep your ear to the ground. That's what Marvel does. That's what they did for the first 10 years, and that's why things work so well. Anyway, back to Star Wars. Instead, it all looks like Lucasfilm is worried about the box office numbers, which, sometimes when you put money ahead of art, you end up with bad decision making and you lose money. So you gotta learn how to balance things like that, which should not be a problem. One of the main factors that led to the box office failure of Solo is the fact that it was released in theaters right after The Last Jedi. I mean, that's, again, Star Wars fatigue had set in. The Star Wars fatigue thing, maybe for the general audience, but the hardcore fans, they would have showed up for Solo, a lot of them, if they weren't so turned off by what happened with The Last Jedi. And the writing was on the wall for Lucasfilm. Star Wars Episode 9 is hitting theaters over a year after Solo, which means that fans should be hungry for the final installment in the new trilogy. You can check out the original report over on Variety. Well, I don't have that kind of time. So, let's see, there was something up here. Many hardcore fans are looking at JJ Abrams to fix things that they feel Johnson messed up. I think a lot of hardcore fans are done. That's what I think. I think half of the fans possibly are just like, I'm done with this thing. Or maybe the percentage isn't as high as half, but there's a lot of people, and I've seen over the last several months, they're just burnt. They don't care. They don't care what JJ Abrams does. They want this trilogy over. A lot of them stated they're not going to spend another dollar on Disney Star Wars. I really don't think they give a crap what JJ Abrams does and how he tries to fix things after Johnson came in and just kind of took a flamethrower to the franchise and just incinerated all the good faith that was left. And you know what? If you look at this picture, okay, and you look at kind of what we're left with here, and if these characters, Rey didn't have to go the way that she did, and certainly Kylo Ren, didn't have to end up being so emo. They could have played him more like a Vader, kept him menacing and sinister, and look, not a one-note character for sure. You could be a great dynamic villain and still have menace and layers to you, and the audience can have compassion for you. I mean, you look at a character like Thanos. I mean, you saw a little bit of him here and there throughout the years in the Avenger movies and all the Marvel franchise movies, but when he finally gets onto screen, what a fantastic character. I mean, the way that he's portrayed and the depth that they give him, you almost feel for him in his agenda. I mean, you don't want him to succeed, but they portray him in such a way that you actually understand, or you can at least empathize with why he's trying to do what he's doing. He's not necessarily right, but some people think that maybe he's not necessarily wrong either. So you can have a serious, threatening character who has true menace that is powerful, and still not have him be, so weak at the same point, or his weaknesses are there, but he doesn't come across as weak. It's something that needs to be exploited. Kylo Ren, they completely dropped the ball in this character. He's a failed Vader experiment. She's a failed Luke experiment, and it's a shame, because if all these characters were handled the right way, and then you have Lando, you have Chewie, you still have Luke, this conclusion of this trilogy, if Rian Johnson didn't drop the ball, I mean, down an elevator shaft into the depths of hell, the conclusion with Episode 9 could have been a very satisfying, very fun climax to the whole entire first Disney Lucasfilm era Star Wars trilogy. Instead, we're left with a fan community, a large part of the fan community that just doesn't care anymore. And a lot of people just want to see it be over with so we can move on to whatever the next saga is. And, look, if they go the route of the Rian Johnson films, I think that's a bad mistake. I think the guy is a liability. And, I still say that his Star Wars movies will not ever see the light of day. I think it would be a bad business decision. And look, again, Disney likes their profits. It all comes down to money. And why would they let somebody come in there and do a trilogy if they're acknowledging that this is a course correction? Why are they correcting course? Okay, not just because Solo bombed, but because The Last Jedi was so poorly received. Again, Last Jedi is the cause, Solo is the effect. So if you want to continue to let the person who directed the cause affect your franchise going forward, well, then you deserve all of the lost profits that you eventually don't get the stuff into your pocket. So I don't think Rian Johnson ever sees the light of day with his trilogy, and then you'll end up with the D&D trilogy and see what they can do. And really, a Knights of the Old Republic far removed from the Skywalker saga. Anything far removed from the Skywalker saga at this point. Unfortunately, I can't believe I'm saying that, but you know what? No more Skywalker saga. That's it. It's over. You got to move forward. You got to wipe the slate clean. And there could be a lot of great Star Wars to be told, a lot of compelling, amazing stories and characters that we can come to know and love. It needs to be done the right way by people who truly care about this universe and have the ability to come in and craft a story that makes people feel something again and capture the spirit of what this Star Wars franchise originally was back when Lucas conceived it and gave us these films in the late 70s all through the early 80s. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this course correction deal. As far as I'm concerned, episode 9 is not course correction. It's closing the book. Course correction is the Clone Wars. All right, going back to the Clone Wars with Dave Filoni. Course correction is possibly the new Jon Favreau, The Mandalorian show. Course correction is any movies that come after this, D&D. Course correction is giving us an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie only starring Ewan McGregor. Those are course corrections. This movie, this is the end. This is the end of the Skywalker saga. This is the end of this trilogy. This is the end of lousy Star Wars. The course correction, in a sense, comes with this coming all to an end. And finally arriving at the end of this particular course will enable us to embark in a new direction. And that, in a sense, I guess, that's the course correction that we need. But this doesn't fix anything. It just ends it all. It brings it to an end so we could start anew. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment down below, and I will catch you guys sometime soon. Be happy, be safe, be healthy. Have a great day. Bye.